You remember memorizing phone numbers, writing them down on paper and hoping you wouldn't forget them, and now you reset your password every other week because there are too many accounts to keep track of. You remember a time when boredom was normal, when silence wasn't uncomfortable, when being unreachable for hours wasn't dramatic, it was just life. And yet, you also remember the first time the internet started changing everything, when phones stopped being attached to walls and started living in your pocket, when social media quietly entered your world and never left. If you were born between 1976 and 1985, you don't fully belong to Gen X, and you don't quite feel like a millennial either. You stand in between, in a space that doesn't get talked about enough. You had an analog childhood, but a digital adulthood. You passed notes in class instead of sending DMs. You made plans without texting, "Where are you?" You showed up and trusted your friends would be there too. And if they weren't, you simply waited. That required patience, commitment, and a different kind of trust than most people experience today. Then, suddenly, the world flipped. Not slowly, not gently, but completely. The internet exploded, cell phones became normal, social platforms appeared one after another, Friendster, MySpace, Facebook, and somehow you adapted without anyone teaching you how. Here's what makes that timing important. The part of your brain responsible for adapting to change, the prefrontal cortex, continues developing into your mid-20s. That means while your identity was still forming, the world rewrote its rules. You were young enough to adapt naturally, but old enough to remember what came before. That created something rare. You became fluent in two worlds. You can sit in a room without checking your phone every 30 seconds, but you aren't intimidated by new technology. You understand face-to-face conversations, and you understand digital communication. You remember when embarrassing moments faded into memory instead of living forever online. There are no permanent records of your worst haircut, your awkward teenage phase, your mistakes at 17. Those memories softened over time because that's how the human brain works. Memory is fluid. It edits, it reshapes, it lets certain things fade. But then social media arrived, and suddenly nothing fades. Everything is documented, searchable, permanent. You experienced both systems, forgetting and archiving, and that changes the way you see privacy, identity, and even growth. And just when you were ready to build your adult life, 2008 happened. The financial crisis hit right when many of you were entering the job market, trying to establish careers, trying to feel secure. Jobs disappeared, stability disappeared, and the future suddenly felt uncertain. Economic instability during your early 20s doesn't just affect your bank account, it affects your psychology. It shapes how you view risk, money, and long-term planning. Even years later, a quiet voice might still whisper, "What if it all falls apart again?" So you became adaptable but cautious, independent but aware, optimistic but slightly skeptical. You grew up before helicopter parenting became common, so you learned to solve problems alone. Your parents didn't always know where you were, and that was normal. You entertained yourself, you dealt with boredom, you handled frustration without immediate distraction. At the same time, you stepped into adulthood when technology promised connection, opportunity, and endless possibility. You saw both the hope and the complications. That's why sometimes you feel slightly out of place, too old for some trends, too young for others, comfortable offline but capable online. You are not confused. You are transitional. You didn't just grow up in one version of the world, you grew up in two. Most generations adapt gradually, but you experienced a sharp pivot while you were still becoming yourself. That teaches something powerful. It teaches flexibility without complete dependency. It teaches appreciation for convenience without forgetting simplicity. You remember what we gained: instant communication, access to information, global connection. And you remember what we lost: patience, deep presence, the ability to disappear without explanation. Maybe that's why you don't fully fit into neat generational boxes. You're not meant to. You are the bridge between before and after. If this resonated with you, then maybe you've always known you were different, not in a superior way, but in a way shaped by timing, by history, by being in the right age at the exact moment the world flipped. You weren't just present for change, you were formed by it. And that might be one of the most valuable perspectives anyone can have today. Make sure you're subscribed because there's more coming that I think you'll see yourself in. I'll see you in the next video.